When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, welcome back to the Grease Cop YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Tarbeck and Reynes rebellion, as well as Tywin's younger life, how he kind of came to be who he was, and all of that. Now, this video was brought to you by my stream, so if you guys don't know, I have been streaming about once a week, usually on Mondays at 7 p.m. U.S. Central Time. This week, it's going to be on Friday at 7 p.m. U.S. Central Time, so if you guys wanted to be part of those, we've been doing, like, brackets, kind of very fan voted like stuff, so very interactive for you guys. So if you guys want to be part of those, they're there. And I also always do announcements for those as well whenever we're gonna go live or whatever. So yeah, if you want to be part of those, you know, hop in, say hi. And also if you want to give video ideas, it's a great place to do it as well while I'm literally live streaming. So yeah, also before we start the video, if you guys like to like, subscribe, and comment, please do it. Up channel grow your appeal. It might like this content as well. And let's get into the video. So, to start out with Tywin's early life and kind of why the Reynes and Tarbeck rebellion ends up happening is because we have to look at who Tywin's father was. Tywin's father was Tywin Lannister. Think about it as someone that is kind of a pushover, right? He's always wanting everyone to be kind of happy, and he never kind of sets his ground, right? He'll give out loans, but then not get that money back, but he'll be like, oh, well, I don't want to cause, problems. He's one of those type of people where he's very much a pushover. And Tywin grows up with that kind of father figure. So that's why he becomes so different, because he sees how people take advantage of his father. Now, the first big thing we see on in Tywin's life that Tywin was a little way different than his father was when his sister, Jenna, was married to Aemon Frey. These are two of the characters we see at River Run with Jaime, and this is just not a good match. This is Jenna. She is a, daughter of the Lannisters, very powerful house, to Aemon Frey, the second son of a Frey. A horrible match, and the reason that we are given that Tywin ended up doing this was to make the Lord of the Crossing happy. Really bad reasoning. And it's just a terrible match if you really think about it, right? So that's kind of the first thing, and Tywin kind of actively speaks out against this, and this is just not good. And this is the other thing, right? You actively have Ellen Reyne laughing out loud. Actively laughing at Tywin. Something we will see that Tywin does not like laughter. He does not being laughed at. He does not like his children being seen as a joke with, Tyrion and how he does all of his flips and things like that and all that. So he is not a fan of that. Tywin, this is the reason, because he grows up in a household that's laughed at, that no one respects, and these are all major characteristics that come into play for Tywin. Now, Tywin spends a lot of his early life actually away from home. He spends it in King's Landing, where he's off being kind of a cupbearer for Aegon V, and this is kind of where he meets Steffon Baratheon. This would be Stannis, Robert Renly's father, and also meeting Aerys Targaryen, who would end up becoming the Mad King. So these were your, three people that were really close. They were best friends, and also he ends up bringing his cousin, Joanna Lannister, who he ends up marrying, and that's kind of his early life, where he starts building these bonds with these powerful figures, and then the War of the Nine Penny Kings, and this is where Tywin gains a lot more of his respect. He's already a knight at this point. He's, joining the Lannister forces of about 11,000-ish men, and then he also ends up, at the end of it, actually knighting Aerys. So really interesting and cool moment for Tywin to grant his friend a knighthood. And that would kind of lead us back to the Westerlands and back to Casterly Rock, where Tywin, when he left, was just a boy. But he was someone that was already very outspoken. Someone that was not, afraid of anyone. Really, he was someone that wanted to get his respect and restore kind of his house. And Tywin Lannister, as we talked about, was a very weak ruler, and he continuously keeps getting taken advantage of by his bannermen, and he's lending out all this money. He's very much making the Lannister house poorer. right? To the point where Tywin actually demands the repayment of the gold. Now, this is very interesting because you have to remember Tytos is still the one in power, right? Tywin technically should have no power. He's really just the heir to their lands or whatever, right? And Tywin instantly, when he comes back, seeing war, being in King's Landing, starts to use his skills. And not only that, he's also helped by Sir Kevan Lannister, his, brother. And what ends up happening is Kevan Lannister is given a command of 500 veteran knights, and this is just taxed with either, taking out robber knights and outlaws, and also, getting these hostages back, because what they were going to try and do is, if you are not going to be able to repay your loan now, you are going to have to give up a hostage. So Kevan Lannister was also kind of in charge of the collection of these hostages or of the sums they owed back to the Lannisters. Now, people like Sir Harris Swift is someone that ends up, following along, surrendering his daughter, Dorna. And some houses did not like this, right? Roger, I don't know how you say his name, but Roger Reyne, Lord of Castmere, actually laughed at Tywin's, order, and Lord Tarbeck actually rode to confront Tytos. And Tytos at this point had been off somewhere else. He was not at the Rock, and Tywin orders him to be imprisoned. Well, this makes sense from Tywin's point of view. He wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. Tywin was in charge while Tytos was away. Now, Lord Tarbeck's wife ends up seizing some of Tywin's cousins. This is Stafford. We see him with the Lannisters leading the other force that Robb ends up defeating. And we also see 2 Lannisters of Lannisport. Now, Lord Tytos, being kind of the not good leader aspect and also being kind of a pushover, instantly orders to exchange the hostages and to forgive their debt. Something that Tywin would never do, and goes completely against what Tywin decided what he wanted to do. Now, Tywin, a little bit later, decides to kind of poke the bear a little. And he goes, well, House Reyne and Tarbeck are supposed to come to Casterly Rock to answer for their crimes. This is basically defying their liege lord in the Lannisters, and also actively taking the liege lord's family, so all of that. Now, they, in response, decide, okay, we are not going to be part of House Lannister or the West. We are not going to swear fealty to you, and we are going to basically start a rebellion. Now, Tywin kind of just realizing the situation, and we're giving the prelude to how Tytos reacts, pretty much goes against, not even with his father's knowledge, right? Raises an army, and Tywin instantly defeats Lord Tarbeck, and then destroys Tarbeck Hall, with Lord Tarbeck's wife dying in the collapse, which is something that we're kind of hinted at, is that Tywin kind of smiled as their fortress was destroyed and his wife was killed. Now, Roger, this is the Roger Reyne, he decides to flee back to Castmere. And if you've ever heard the song The Reynes of Castmere, you'll understand what's going to happen next. Now, the Castmere fortress was kind of a subterranean castle, so it was kind of a weird one. Tywin Lannister does not want them to surrender. He wants to make an example, right? He's already made an example of the Tarbecks, but he also needs to make an example of the Reynes. So what ends up happening is he diverts a nearby stream into Castmere, drowning the Reynes within. A very brutal and fitting end to the Reyne-Tarbeck rebellion, and it was dealt with very swiftly. Now, the ruined castles were also left as kind of a reminder of what happens here. You know how we have the North remembers type thing? Well, this is kind of the Tywin will fuck you up if you step out of line. That's where Tywin really gets his name from, is these rebellions and putting them down quickly, and he'll gain even more of that when he becomes Hand of the King. And this is, like I said before, the Reynes of Castmere are written about these events, and what I think is very funny is we hear even later on that Lord Farman, he was someone that started to kind of grow against the Lannisters and all that. And Tywin paid someone to perform the song to Lord Farman. And then there was no further trouble. That is really fitting of Tywin's character, and it's a really good idea of where Tywin became the person he was, why he wasn't exactly the most happy person in the world, and why he wasn't a fan of laughter. He wasn't a fan of mockery, of all that. He was a very serious person when it came down to it, and that's what I think makes Tywin an extremely awesome character. So if you guys have anything else you want to add to the Tarbeck Rebellion and Tywin's even early life, this is where we're going to end the video. I'm not going to go into the Hand of the King because I don't feel like that's his early life anymore. It's more of him becoming, as an adult, really. Because at this point, he's gone through a war. He's put down a rebellion. He really is now ruling House Lannister at this point. So, yeah, this is where we're going to end the video. If you guys would like to see a part 2 of Tywin's life, maybe talking about him as Hand of the King and all of the events leading up to our main story in A Game of Thrones, let me know and I will go ahead and do that. But thank you guys all for watching, and I'll see you guys next video. Bye, guys.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.